What's up everybody, James Michelle here, and I'm back at you with another video. In this video I'm going to be discussing my personal top 10 most epic scenes from Game of Thrones. Now, to constitute an epic scene in my mind, two criteria must be met. One, my spine needs a tingle, and I need goosebumps. So, with that being said, scenes like Ned's beheading, while one of the most top 10 shocking moments for sure, will not be on the list because it didn't have that effect on me. So, that being said, let's get into the list. Now, first, I want to give props to composer Ramin Djawadi, who does the score for Game of Thrones. His score is magnificent. It's one of my favorites. I listen to the score for Game of Thrones in my normal everyday life. He's right up there. I mean, he's got a lot to prove for films and stuff, but his score has that epic scope, akin to, let's say, Hans Zimmer. So his score definitely amplifies all these scenes. That's something they have in common, because the music swells in the right spots, and it just gives you those goosebumps, which is a qualifier to be on my list. So, number 10 is kind of a cop-out, but it's a tie between two scenes. The first one being Dany's Mhysa scene after taking Astapor. And this is purely just based on the score. Because really it's not that epic of a scene without the score. But with the music swelling at the right spot, we see Dany coming out and everyone, calling her Mhysa and lifting her up. But it's the pan-out shot that shows the scope of her army, plus the dragons flying, and with the great... she has some of the best themes in the show. And if she has one, she'll show up on this list again. Even though I'm not a Dany fan, she does have some great scenes. And it's purely based on the score. Yeah, it pans out, we see the dragon screeching, and it just has an epic score playing, and, it's one of those moments that makes your spine tingle. So that being said, the second moment for me was the episode 9 from Season 4, Watchers on the Wall. And it's pretty much anything to do with Alistair Thorne throughout this episode. And I really loved his performance in this episode. You first have him have his speech with Jon, saying the moment a leader questions himself, then all is lost. And it was a great, poignant moment. Then there's the comical moment when, he says, "Archers knock, everyone else hold." And then Gran and Ed lose the grip of a frozen barrel, tumbling off the edge. And he says, I said knock and hold, you cunts. Does knock mean draw? And they say, no, sir. Does fucking hold mean fucking drop? No, sir. You all plan to die here tonight? No, sir. That's very good to hear. Draw. And I just love Thorne's delivery. Owen Teal, I believe is his name. I think he's a great actor. That's why I was kind of disappointed when they had Thorne actually be one of the ones to stab Jon in the end, but it's a different take for a different video. And then, of course, he has kind of like the 300 moment, the dine in, tonight we dine in hell, when he has a great speech to his men in the court of Castle Black when the Thenns are about to storm in, and it's just a great moment. So that being said, number 9. This is, I call it Chaos as a Ladder. It's Season 3, Episode 6, The Climb. It's the scene where Varys and Littlefinger are having a interaction together that we never get to see in the books because they don't have POVs. So it was a great moment, where we see how they're on different, they're polar opposites in terms of their ideologies. Varys wants order, and Baelish wants chaos. And I love Baelish's themes. It's one of my favorites. I believe it's called Chaos as a Ladder. And, at this time, it's the exact moment where he says, chaos isn't a pit, it's a ladder. And then they show the difference, they show Raz being killed by Joffrey. And then they showed Sansa crying at the sight of knowing that she can't be with, that the alliance with the Tyrells is off. And she sees Baelish's ship going off in Blackwater Bay. It's just a great scene, chilling. We see kind of how, a badass Baelish is in his own way. That being said, we're going to move on to number 8. Tyrion's confession at his trial, / demanding a trial by combat. This is Season 4, Episode 6, The Laws of God and Men. This is Tyrion's trial after his moment with, after Shay comes in and revealed that, she is kind of under the thumb of his family, and she tells these blatant lies. And Tyrion just... he was supposed to have, he kind of had this deal with Jaime where, he would confess and everything and be sent to the wall, but he just snapped at that moment and just gave one of the best speeches on the show, period. I watched that scene over, 10 times in a row after the show aired. It was that epic. And then when he demands a trial by combat at the end, you can see his mouth kind of smiling at Tywin a little bit. And then the line where, he essentially told Cersei, I wish I would have killed Joffrey, was epic. That's just an epic scene, bottom line. So, number 7, ironically, kind of ties in to that episode. It's the next episode, Season 4, Episode 7, Mockingbird. It's Tyrion and Oberyn Martell in the dungeon. And Oberyn's telling the story about how he first met Tyrion as a baby, and then how he wasn't... The stories didn't match the description. And, we have this great moment where they're both welling, they're starting to well with tears, and, Oberyn says, he just wants justice, and Tyrion says, well, you'll find no justice here. And then Oberyn says, oh, I will find justice here. And then he has this speech where he'll start with Gregor, and then Tywin, and then it's just a great moment at the end when he grabs the torch and says, I would be your champion. That's just, if you're not moved by that, you're not a human being, bottom line. So yeah, that's number 7. Just a great moment. Number 6 is Dracarys. Season 3, Episode 4, and now his watch is ended is the episode. This is the scene when Dany essentially takes Astapor over. And it's just a great scene. You have the slave master, I forget his name, but, when she gets this is essentially when she gets the Unsullied. And, she essentially tricks them and gets the rod to control the Unsullied, which she ends up breaking because she wants them to be on her side of her own volition. But this scene is all about the music. That theme, Dracarys, is awesome. We see just the turning of the tide, her revealing that she did speak Valyrian all along. She could understand his insults and his just shitty demeanor. And, when she tells Drogon, Dracarys, and burns his ass and roasts his ass, that's some epic stuff. I'm not a Dany fan, but, I get goosebumps in that scene. Especially at the end when she throws the rod down and the horses are trampling on it and the Unsullied are on her side without the rod. And it just pulls back and we see exactly how many Unsullied there were. I was like, damn, that's some epic shit. And it was. So yeah, Dracarys was number 6. Next up is number 5, Blackwater. Season 2, Episode 9, episode entitled Blackwater. Now I wanted to point out a couple things from this episode that was epic. Of course, the wildfire explosion. There's nothing. We hear silence. All we can hear is the ricketing of the boat. The boat slowly coming in towards, half of Stannis' navy. We see Davos there. He says wildfire, and then he has concern for Mathis, his son. He yells for Mathis to get down. Of course, Bronn, after seeing the signal, pulls back the bow, releases the shot. We see, all we can hear is the whistling of the arrow. Hits the water, the wildfire ignites, bam. Just a great epic moment. That explosion was great. We see Davos flying into the bay, we see his son dying, we just see the carnage. And then of course we see, Stannis, his grit just intensifies. He still has his resolve to go on, and we have his soldiers saying, hundreds will die, sir, if we continue this attack, and he says, thousands. That was just an epic moment. And then, of course, he says, come on, let's take this city. And they still go down, and you still see Stannis coming in on the rowboat on top. He's on the front of the boat. Of course, in the books, he doesn't fight. But, I didn't read the books until after Season 2. And Stannis became my favorite character in Season 2 because I saw a king with enough resolve to be on the front line. He's the first one off the boat, and he's the last one to get out because they have to drag him off. And he's just cutting dudes up left and right. I'm sorry, but Stannis was a badass in this episode. Yeah. Just a great episode. A lot of epic moments in that episode. And, I don't know what else to say. It's just a great episode. So, next up is number 4, The King in the North. Season 1, Episode 10, Fire and Blood. Now, this moment is, of course, when the great Jon Umber essentially coronates Robb Stark and rallies the men around him and says, he's essentially the king of the North, and that's the man that he will follow. The Stark theme is played throughout this scene, and the Stark theme is one of the best on the show. It's just sweeping, it's emotional, it's just a great song. And, when the great Jon pulls out his sword and says, "There sits the only king I mean to bend my knee to," and that song is swelling, it's Goosebump City. And that's why it's number 4 on the list. It's just a great moment. I mean, I'm not a huge Robb fan, but that moment is just epic. Number 3, Dany's dragons are hatched. The same episode as the last one, Season 1, Episode 10, Fire and Blood. We can see how good Season 1 is when you have 2 back-to-back this high in the top 5 on that list in the same episode. And this is the final shot of the episode. This is Dany, this is Khal Drogo's burning, and when she emerges from the pit, and she's sitting there, and the dragons are revealed. And, Jorah, he bends the knee to her, and he says, "Blood of my blood," and we see everyone else start bending, and once again, going back to the music, this is probably my favorite song from the whole series, is a song that's played. It's entitled Finale, if you ever want to look it up. It's just, if this is what got me hooked onto the show completely, I was sunk in at this point when this moment was shown to me. Though, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Dany, and there was 3 Dany moments on here, but I was still just enthralled by that episode, by that scene. And yeah, it was pretty fucking epic. I think we can all agree on that. Number 2, The Red Wedding. Season 3, Episode 9, Reigns of Castamere. And it's a particular moment because, throughout the scene, it's horrible, it's atrocious. We don't have goosebumps, though, Well, maybe you did, but I didn't. But the moment that I had goosebumps, the particular moment, is when, after Cat kills Walder's wife, and we see Black Walder, or I forget what, Lothar, maybe it's Lothar Frey, actually, come in and, slice Cat's throat. And we see the blood running out, and then it just fades to black, and then we hear the violin version of Reigns of Castamere play. That's... I just got goosebumps thinking about it. It's just crazy. I knew it was coming when I watched it, but I can only imagine show watchers only, first time ever experiencing something like that in a television show. That's the first time that I can think of that something like that crazy happened. And I can just only imagine how they felt that time. I wish I could go back and experience it without knowing that it was coming. So yeah, that particular moment, the fade to black scene with Cat getting her throat cut, that's number 2. Number 1, the only good thing about Season 5, Hardhome. Season 5, Episode 8, Hardhome. This whole sequence in one just counts. There were so many epic moments in this scene, from the White Walkers breaking through the gate, from the Whites jumping off the cliff, from the scene with the one-on-one scene between the White Walker and Jon, and him slicing him down with the long claw. But of course, the particular moment I'm going to talk about is the very end. All you hear is silence. All you hear is the creaking of the boat. You hear the water, and you just see the Night's King raising his arms. Come at me, bro. That is number 1 in my mind. I remember I was just enthralled when I watched this episode. I was like, "What the hell am I watching, man? This is some epic shit. And yeah, I watched it over like 10 times, so whenever I watch a scene more than 3 times, it constitutes as an epic scene, essentially. And if you didn't like that, I know some people didn't like it because they're, oh, you know, it's not in the books or whatever, but that's the reason right there is why I watched the show, because I want epic moments like that. So yeah, Hard Home was number 1 for me. If you felt like I left anything off, like I said, like Ned's beheading, I felt that it's a great moment, and it's a crazy moment, but to me it didn't constitute as an epic moment. So yeah, let me know if you think I left anything off, or what would be your top 10, you know, put that in the comments. Yeah. So if you like what you saw, hit the like button, comment, share, and of course subscribe. Until next time, guys, adios.